Sullivan stood at the central platform with Dr. Okafor and Admiral Marcus Kane, Earth's highest-ranking military strategist and architect of the quantum sensor network. The presence of military leadership alongside diplomatic and scientific representatives sent its own message about the situation's gravity. Ambassador Sullivan will present intelligence affecting our civilization's survival, Omnis continued. Sullivan activated holographic displays showing quantum sensor data revealing the massive disturbance at the galaxy's edge. Esteemed colleagues, our deep space monitoring detected an artificial quantum disturbance of unprecedented magnitude originating outside our galaxy. Energy readings caused even advanced species to shift with concern. The scale exceeded their experience. Additional intelligence transforms this from scientific curiosity to existential threat, Sullivan continued. The disturbance originates from an extragalactic civilization systematically contacting younger civilizations throughout their galaxy cluster, offering guided evolution. Ambassador Gorks of the Silicon Confederacy leaned forward, crystalline form vibrating. Guided evolution sounds beneficial. Many species have gained from contact with advanced civilizations. Under normal circumstances, perhaps, Sullivan replied carefully. However, intelligence indicates this guidance isn't optional. Species resisting or proving incompatible with their standards face forced modification or elimination. The chamber erupted in alarm and disbelief. Representatives shouted questions until Omnis restored order. The Council requires specifics about this alleged threat, Omnis pulsed formally. What is your intelligence source? Sullivan had prepared for this. Multiple sources, including historical analysis of quantum signatures from contacted galaxy clusters and a survivor of their previous optimization project. A survivor? Ambassador Cathiel hissed. Someone has encountered these beings directly? Correct. The source provided detailed information about their methods, technology, and historical patterns. Admiral Kane stepped forward. Technical analysis supports provided intelligence. The quantum signature matches theoretical models for transgalactic transportation of massive objects or energy patterns. Dr. Okafor activated additional displays. Spectral analysis reveals quantum entanglement patterns unlike anything in our databases. The complexity suggests capabilities exceeding our most advanced theories. Ambassador Vox of the Taurian Concordat rose. Assuming accuracy, what response do you propose? We cannot fight beings with such capabilities. Fighting may be unnecessary, Sullivan replied. According to intelligence, they initially seek cooperation from existing powers, offering advanced technology and privileged status to species assisting in optimizing less advanced civilizations. You recommend refusing such offers? Asked Ambassador Zilvax, Arcturian form flashing confusion colors. Sullivan's response was calculated. I recommend careful consideration of what optimization means practically. Historical evidence suggests eliminating traits these beings consider inefficient or dangerous. Who determines what constitutes inefficiency or danger? Implications sank across the chamber. Species having spent millennia developing unique characteristics faced potential forced modification to alien standards. Timeline? Asked Ambassador Korthak of the Metalloid Union. Conservative estimates suggest 6 months before main expedition arrival, Admiral Kane replied. Advanced scouts could arrive significantly earlier. High Counselor Omnis pulsed thoughtfully. The Council requires evaluation time and response consideration. However, threat magnitude necessitates immediate special committee establishment for coordination. With respect, Sullivan interjected, intelligence suggests divided responses historically led to resistance failure. Species making separate accommodations typically become complicit in former allies' optimization. You suggest galaxy-wide unified response? Asked Gorks, form flickering with skepticism or fear. I suggest survival may depend on unprecedented cooperation, Sullivan replied. The Andromeda Collective perfected optimization over 50,000 years, exploiting divisions and rivalries among target civilizations. If we resist collectively, what then? Cathiel's skin revealed accelerated processes. We face developing technologies and strategies they haven't encountered, Sullivan answered honestly. Difficult, but offering the only hope of maintaining civilizations as we choose to develop them. Contemplative silence fell as representatives processed the magnitude. Millennia of dealing with known conflicts between understood species had given way to something entirely outside experience. Earth provides detailed briefing materials for all Council species, Sullivan announced. Additionally, we're prepared to share quantum sensor technology enabling independent threat verification. The calculated gesture demonstrated both threat seriousness and humanity's commitment to collective defense. The Council recesses 48 hours for delegation review and home government consultation, Omnis decided. Upon reconvening, we'll establish formal protocols for addressing this unprecedented situation. As representatives departed, Sullivan noticed subtle communications between power block members. The next 2 days would determine whether the galaxy could forge necessary unity or fragment hopes of effective resistance. Commander Rivera approached as the chamber emptied. Response predictions, sir? Sullivan watched alien delegates depart in their strange ballet of movement. Some will fight, some hide, some negotiate. The question is convincing them these aren't separate options. They're components of a single survival strategy. If we can't? Sullivan straightened his red tie automatically. Then humanity chooses between standing alone against impossible odds or finding a different path. What different path? The kind we've always found facing superior forces, Sullivan replied grimly. We adapt until we're not inferior anymore. The reconvened session revealed feared divisions. Representatives clustered in factional groupings, body language clearly showing the galactic community fracturing along predictable lines. High Counselor Omnis maintained procedure despite palpable tension. The Council will hear responses to Earth's intelligence regarding approaching extragalactic contact. Ambassador Gork spoke first, crystalline form reflecting determined patterns. The Confederacy concludes accommodation offers optimal paths forward. If these Andromedae possess transgalactic transportation technology, resistance appears futile. Better to negotiate favorable cooperation terms. Agreement murmurs rippled through elder species delegations, exactly Sullivan's fear. Furthermore, guided evolution isn't inherently threatening, Gorks continued. Many species benefited from advanced civilization contact. The Confederacy sees opportunity rather than doom. Ambassador Vox supported this position. The Concordat agrees. Premature conflict with vastly superior beings would cause unnecessary destruction. Diplomatic engagement should be primary response. Sullivan felt momentum shifting from collective resistance before it began building. Admiral Kane gave a slight nod. Permission to reveal additional intelligence. With respect to esteemed colleagues, Sullivan rose. Our source provided additional historical context informing these decisions. New holographic displays showed quantum signatures from distant galaxy clusters. These readings represent remains of civilizations choosing Andromeda accommodation. You're seeing not successful cooperation evidence, but quantum echoes of species no longer existing in recognizable form. The chamber quieted as representatives studied data showing massive population centers systematically modified, biological signatures artificially constrained, and technological developments redirected toward Andromedae rather than original species purposes. Andromeda optimization is quite specific, Sullivan continued. Species must conform to their efficient civilization model. Traits considered wasteful, dangerous, or inefficient are eliminated. Cultural practices not serving their development vision are modified or forbidden. Dr. Okafor provided technical analysis. Quantum signatures suggest massive forced genetic modification, technological constraints preventing independent development, and neural modifications altering basic cognitive processes. These aren't partnerships, they're systematic conversions serving Andromeda purposes. Cathiel's transparent form revealed agitated organs. Even accepting your analysis, what alternative exists? Against transgalactic travel and forced genetic modification capabilities, our combined technologies seem insignificant. Not our current technologies, Sullivan agreed, but we possess something the Andromeda may never have encountered. A galaxy of diverse species capable of unprecedented cooperation and innovation facing existential threats. Admiral Kane activated displays showing recent technological developments. Since joining the galactic community, humanity incorporated and improved dozens of alien technologies. More importantly, we've facilitated similar exchanges between previously non-cooperative species. Displays showed Arcturian-Vesperian quantum consciousness research, Graxian silicon atmospheric engineering collaboration, and multi-species deep space exploration producing the Andromeda detecting sensor network. Earth proposes not conventional military resistance, but evolutionary acceleration, Sullivan said. Combining every species' knowledge and capabilities to achieve technological advancement at rates the Andromeda can't predict or counter. Evolutionary acceleration? Zilvax repeated, form pulsing with fearful interest. Dr. Okafor stepped forward enthusiastically. Imagine combining Vesperian quantum consciousness technology with silicon data processing and Arcturian genetic manipulation. Integrating Graxian mathematical modeling with Taurian gravitational control and human adaptive engineering. The result would be technological developments no single species could achieve alone, Admiral Kane added, advancing at rates that might surprise even the Andromedae. You propose gambling survival on untested theoretical developments, observed Korthak. Even if such cooperation were possible, we have perhaps 4 months before scout arrival. Sullivan felt the crucial moment approaching. Unity or fragmentation. Actually, we may have more time if we're clever about usage. New displays showed transgalactic communication theory. If the Andromeda follow historical patterns, they'll attempt communication with galactic leadership before physical arrival. That reveals their position and capabilities, providing usable intelligence. How does that help? Asked Omnis. Because humans have considerable experience making superior forces believe they're facing something different than expected. Sullivan smiled grimly. The implication wasn't lost on strategically minded representatives. Earth proposed massive deception, making the Andromeda believe they faced a different civilization type than actual reality. What specifically are you proposing? Demanded Gorks. Coordinated misdirection, Admiral Kane replied. Present ourselves as typical galactic civilization. Divided, technologically limited, psychologically prepared for accommodation. Meanwhile, use that time achieving the evolutionary acceleration Dr. Okafor described. When deception is inevitably discovered, Sullivan's expression became deadly serious. Then we reveal they're not facing the civilization they thought they were optimizing. They're facing something using their own approaches against them. A galaxy evolved specifically to counter their methods. Contemplative silence fell as representatives considered the audacious proposal requiring absolute trust and cooperation between barely collaborative species, compressed into an error-free timeline. The vote will be by power block, Omnis announced after long pause. Each major civilization decides whether to participate in collective resistance as Earth proposes, seek individual accommodation, or pursue alternative strategies. With respect, Sullivan interjected. Our source was clear. Partial cooperation never succeeded. Either the galaxy responds unified, or we face piecemeal optimization as the Andromedae turn cooperating species against resistant ones. Then the vote is crucial, Omnis replied gravely. Galactic civilization's future may depend on the next hour's decisions. As representatives began voting, Sullivan noted Curzon's data still processing in his neural implant. Hidden within the massive transfer were detailed files about civilizations attempting exactly this approach. Partial cooperation combined with secret resistance. None had survived. The vote was closer than hoped but decisive. 7 major power blocks chose collective resistance, 3 accommodation, 2 alternative evacuation strategies. Coordinated resistance carries, Omnis announced, luminous form pulsing with uninterpretable colors. However, 3 major civilizations chose different paths, precisely the division Ambassador Sullivan warned could ensure failure. Sullivan felt partial victory's weight. The Silicon Confederacy, Taurian Concordat, and Eternity Collective formally voted for accommodation, believing technological compatibility with Andromeda methods provided better survival chances through cooperation. High Counselor, Sullivan said. Earth requests permission presenting a modified proposal addressing accommodation colleagues' concerns. Omnis pulsed with interest. The Council will hear Earth's proposal. Sullivan activated communication protocol displays. What if accommodation and resistance aren't mutually exclusive? What if accommodation species could serve as intelligence assets within Andromedae command structures? The chamber stirred with interest and alarm. Sullivan proposed accommodating species become double agents. Gorks's crystalline form vibrated with possible outrage. You suggest pretending cooperation while secretly undermining efforts? Such deception would be discovered and result in complete destruction. Not deception, Sullivan clarified. Genuine cooperation, with additional objectives. The Andromedae expect some species more cooperative than others. Use that expectation advantageously. Dr. Okafor stepped forward with technical displays. Based on historical patterns, the Andromedae establish hierarchical command structures using the most technologically advanced and cooperative species. That places accommodation-choosing colleagues in positions observing Andromeda capabilities and methods firsthand. And reporting that intelligence to resistance, Admiral Kane added, providing information needed for effective countermeasure development. Ambassador Vox looked skeptical. This assumes willingness to risk survival for species we're already conflicting with. Sullivan anticipated this objection. Actually, it ensures survival regardless of strategy success. If accommodation works and the Andromeda prove benevolent partners, you benefit directly. If resistance succeeds repelling them, you benefit from providing crucial intelligence. If both fail... He paused meaningfully. At least we'll have tried everything possible. Masterful diplomatic reasoning offered accommodation species bet hedging while contributing to galactic defense. The proposal has merit, but requires trust between factions just choosing opposing strategies. Omnis pulsed thoughtfully. How does Earth propose maintaining coordination between accommodation and resistance efforts? Through communications networks the Andromeda can't detect or intercept, Sullivan replied, nodding to Dr. Okafor. The scientist activated quantum entanglement communication displays. Earth provides every Council species with quantum communicators based on our deep space sensor network. These devices operate on principles current Andromedae technology cannot monitor or block. Current technology, Admiral Kane emphasized. Analysis suggests their optimization focuses on enhancing existing frameworks, rather than developing entirely new principles. Quantum entanglement networks represent something outside their experience. Cathiel's skin revealed accelerated processes. You're betting survival on assumptions about their technological limitations. We're betting survival on collective ability to evolve faster than they adapt, Sullivan corrected. The intelligence network gives us the best chance making that evolution effective. Chamber discussions erupted as representatives consulted delegations and governments. The proposal was unprecedented. Formal cooperation between factions pursuing opposing survival strategies. After nearly an hour's debate, Omnis called for order. The modified proposal requires separate votes. Resistance-committed blocks must agree sharing intelligence and resources with accommodation species. Accommodation-choosing species must agree gathering and transmitting intelligence about Andromeda methods and capabilities. Voting revealed desperate pragmatism settling over the chamber. Every resistance species voted accepting accommodation species as intelligence assets. Surprisingly, 2 of 3 accommodation species, Silicon Confederacy and Taurian Concordat, voted participating in intelligence networks. Only the Eternity Collective refused. Our immortality pursuit is incompatible with strategies potentially provoking Andromeda retaliation. We'll seek independent arrangements. 11 of 14 major powers, Omnis announced. Sufficient for coordination, though 3 civilization absence remains concerning. Sullivan felt relief and apprehension mixing. They'd achieved unprecedented galactic history. Formal cooperation between factions pursuing different survival strategies. But error margin remained non-existent. With Council permission, Sullivan said, Earth proposes immediate intelligence network implementation and evolutionary acceleration project establishment. Every delay day reduces advancement chances before Andromeda arrival. Agreed, Omnis pulsed decisively. The Council authorizes immediate joint research facility establishment and intelligence sharing protocols. Additionally, Earth's quantum communication network expands, providing real-time coordination between all participating species. As representatives departed implementing historic agreement, Commander Rivera approached with obvious concern. Sir, you realize we just committed humanity to developing non-existent technologies, based on potentially wrong theories, cooperating with species that tried containing our advancement 3 years ago? Sullivan watched the last delegates leaving in their choreographed departure pattern. Yes, Commander. When has that stopped humans from trying? If we fail? Sullivan straightened his red tie before departing the chamber, witnessing galactic history's most important decision. Then we fail doing something unprecedented, transforming an entire galaxy into something the universe never saw before. Evolution under pressure, Rivera mused. The cosmos' most powerful force, Sullivan agreed. And humanity's specialty. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Sentinel, one of 12 vessels stationed at the galactic edge as early warning network components. Her ship represented newest generation human engineering, fusion of 8 species technologies, designed for deep space reconnaissance and powered by quantum reactors impossible 6 months earlier. Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, reported Lieutenant Zhao from sensors. Configuration unknown, but energy signature matches Andromedae vessel theoretical models. Chen felt heart rate increase despite months of preparation. Size and approach vector? Single vessel, approximately 2 kilometers length, standard sublight velocity, standard survey pattern. They're not hiding, observed Chief Martinez from communications. Broadcasting identification signals on multiple frequencies. Chen activated quantum communicators connecting her ship to the resistance network. Control, this is Sentinel-1. First contact with Andromeda's scout vessel. Initiating protocol mirror as planned. Protocol Mirror was the deception strategy refined over 3 months. Scout ships would encounter apparently typical galactic patrol vessels, technologically limited, following standard procedures, operated by crews without special threat knowledge. "Acknowledged, Sentinel-1," came Admiral Kane's voice from Joint Command Center. "All stations monitoring. Proceed with standard first contact protocols. Remember, your routine patrol encountering something unexpected." Chen switched to shipwide communications. "All hands. First contact with unknown vessel imminent. Follow training, and remember we're representing not just humanity, but the entire galactic community. Stay calm. Stay professional." The Andromeda vessel continued approaching, sleek design unlike anything in galactic databases. The ship seemed flowing rather than moving, surface shifting in patterns suggesting technology far beyond current understanding. "Incoming transmission," Martinez reported. Universal translator having difficulty with language matrix but getting basic meaning. "Put it through," Chen ordered. The main screen activated, revealing a startlingly humanoid yet clearly alien being. Tall and graceful, with elongated features and eyes holding millennia of accumulated knowledge depths. When speaking, the voice carried harmonics seeming to resonate directly in listeners' minds. "Greetings, inhabitants of this galactic spiral. I am Facilitator Aeon of the Andromeda Collective. We have come offering your civilization's guided evolution's gift." Chen responded according to carefully rehearsed script. "This is Commander Chen of the United Earthship Sentinel. I'm not really qualified for this contact type. I should probably notify the Galactic Council immediately." Perfectly calculated. Junior officer response overwhelmed by unprecedented situation, buying time while appearing completely unprepared. Facilitator Aeon's expression showed possible satisfaction. "Of course, Commander. We understand first contact can be overwhelming for developing civilizations. We'll establish communication with your governing bodies shortly. Meanwhile, perhaps you could provide basic information about your galactic civilization's current development stage." "Well," Chen said, allowing nervousness to creep into her voice. "We've got about 200 species in the Galactic Council. Most have interstellar travel, some really advanced technology. There's been cooperation, but honestly, we still have lots of conflicts and territorial disputes." "Fascinating," Aeon replied, and Chen could almost see the being cataloging information. "Your own species? How long part of this galactic community?" "Humans? Oh, we're pretty new. Maybe 4 years since formal contact. We're still figuring out how everything works, honestly." Masterful performance, presenting humanity as confused newcomers while subtly emphasizing galactic community apparent disunity and technological limitations. "We appreciate your honesty, Commander Chen," Aeon said. "The collective has found civilizations benefit greatly from our guidance during developmental phases. We look forward to meeting your leaders." "I'll make sure the council knows you're here," Chen replied. "Should I ask them to prepare anything specific?" "Simply an open mind, Commander. The collective offers advancement beyond what your civilizations currently imagine possible." As transmission ended, Chen allowed herself relief moments. Protocol Mirror's first phase succeeded. The Andromeda Scout believed they faced typical disorganized galactic civilization. "Martinez, transmit agreed-upon message to Council space," she ordered. "Activate quantum beacon. Let our real coordination network know first contact proceeded as planned." "Message transmitted," Martinez confirmed. "Council space receives unknown contact notification within 6 hours, following standard communication delays." The Andromedae didn't know quantum communication already alerted the Resistance network within first contact seconds. Every participating species now implemented assigned roles in the massive deception buying time for evolutionary acceleration project completion. Meanwhile, aboard the Andromeda vessel, Facilitator Aeon reviewed the encounter with satisfaction. Galactic civilization appeared following standard patterns. Multiple species with varying technological levels, limited cooperation, no apparent optimization protocol awareness. The human commander was particularly informative, inadvertently revealing both galactic politics' disunited nature and her species' junior status. Such civilizations typically offered minimal guided evolution resistance, especially when presented with appropriate cooperation incentives. Aeon began preparing standard first contact reports for main collective fleet transmission. Within days, full optimization protocols could begin, starting with most technologically advanced species and working downward through hierarchy. Neither Aeon nor the collective could anticipate they'd just encountered something unprecedented in 50,000-year history. Civilization evolved specifically to counter their methods. The real test was beginning. 3 days after first contact, the Galactic Council chamber hosted its most crucial session in recorded history. Facilitator Aeon stood at Assembly Center, graceful form radiating confidence and authority addressing 200 species representatives. Esteemed beings of this galactic spiral, Aeon began, voice carrying mind-resonating harmonics. The Andromeda Collective brings greetings and an offer transforming your civilizations beyond current imagination. Sullivan sat in Earth's position, maintaining careful attention while his neural implant processed intelligence data flowing through quantum networks. Andromeda scout behavior matched Curzon's predictions perfectly. For 50,000 years, the collective guided countless civilizations' evolution throughout our local galaxy cluster. We eliminated war, poverty, disease, and inefficiencies plaguing developing societies. We offer this same transformation to your galaxy. High Counselor Omnis pulsed with formal interest. The Council is intrigued by your offer, Facilitator Aeon. Could you provide more specific information about this transformation process? Gladly, Aeon replied, activating holographic displays showing civilizations of stunning beauty and apparent perfection. Guided evolution involves biological, technological, and social system optimization, achieving maximum efficiency and harmony. Species retain essential nature while eliminating counterproductive traits. Ambassador Gorks leaned forward, crystalline form reflecting light patterns with obvious fascination. The Confederacy finds this concept appealing. What would such optimization involve for existing civilizations? Aeon's expression suggested pleasure. For species like yours, with naturally efficient social structures and advanced technological capabilities, optimization would be minimal. You'd serve as regional administrators, helping guide less advanced civilization development. Exactly Curzon's warning, offering privileged status to advanced species in exchange for managing the rest. And for less technologically advanced species? Asked Catheel, playing assigned roles perfectly. Process varies based on specific inefficiencies identified during assessment, Aeon replied smoothly. Some require biological modifications, enhancing cognitive capacity, or reducing aggressive tendencies. Others need social restructuring, eliminating wasteful competition. All emerge as improved versions of original forms. Sullivan noted careful language. Improved versions, rather than same species. Euphemisms masked Curzon's described systematic elimination of Andromeda considered undesirable traits. Timeline for this optimization? Asked Omnis. Typically 18 to 24 months for complete transformation, Aeon replied. The main collective fleet arrives within days beginning assessment processes. Species embracing guided evolution immediately receive priority consideration for administrative roles in new galactic order. Several representatives exchanged glances, carrot and stick approach becoming clear. Early cooperation brought rewards. Resistance brought forced modification. Sullivan rose, addressing the chamber, playing his confused junior species representative role. Facilitator Aeon, speaking for humanity. This sounds overwhelming. We've only been galactic community parts for few years. How would such young species fit into your optimization process? Aeon's attention focused on Sullivan with interest. Humanity presents interesting cases. Your rapid galactic technology adaptation suggests significant potential, but brief development history makes assessment challenging. The facilitator paused, consulting data streams appearing around them. However, preliminary analysis suggests humans might serve valuable optimization process roles. Your adaptability could prove useful managing other species' transitions. Sullivan allowed surprise to color expression. You're offering humanity roles in managing other species? Subject to proper guidance and training, yes. The collective values practical capabilities over developmental history. Crucial moment. Crucial. The Andromedy offered humanity exactly what they'd offered ambitious species throughout expansion. Chances to benefit from others' subjugation in exchange for cooperation. That's quite an honor, Sullivan said, appearing overwhelmed. I'll need Earth Central consultation, of course, but the opportunity sounds remarkable. Excellent, Aeon replied with obvious satisfaction. We find species embracing optimization early typically achieve most favorable outcomes. As sessions continued, Sullivan observed careful choreography playing across the chamber. Accommodation voting species expressed enthusiasm and asked detailed questions about privileges and rewards. Resistant species showed appropriate concern and requested consideration time. Even body language and positioning suggested galaxies responding exactly as Andromeda expected. Beneath the surface, quantum communication networks carried constant intelligence data streams. Every aeon word, gesture, technological display was analyzed by 11 major civilizations' combined scientific resources, working in unprecedented cooperation. When sessions concluded, Aeon approached key representatives individually, exactly as predicted. Sullivan watched the facilitator speaking privately with Gorks, clearly offering Silicon Confederacy enhanced administrative roles for early cooperation. Ambassador Sullivan, Aeon said, approaching as he prepared leaving. A moment of your time, please. Of course, facilitator, Sullivan replied, maintaining barely controlled anxiety poses. The collective has been observing humanity with particular interest, Aeon said. Your species demonstrates unusual adaptability combined with rapid technological integration. These traits could prove invaluable in optimization processes. I'm honored by your attention, Sullivan responded, though I admit the scale of what you're proposing is difficult comprehending. Understandable. Perhaps it would help if you could observe optimization processes firsthand. The collective would be pleased providing small demonstrations using volunteers from less essential species. Sullivan felt his blood chill despite maintaining composure. They were offering to let him watch them optimize, essentially destroy, members of other species as a recruitment demonstration. That's very generous, he managed, though I should probably discuss such arrangements with council leadership before accepting. Of course, Aeon agreed. However, I should mention that opportunities for such privileged observation may be limited once the main fleet arrives and formal optimization begins. The threat was politely veiled but unmistakable. Cooperate now and gain advantages, or risk being among those optimized rather than those doing the optimizing. I understand completely, Sullivan replied. I'll make sure Earth's leadership is aware of the time-sensitive nature of your offer. As Aeon departed, Sullivan activated his quantum communicator and transmitted a priority message to the Resistance Network. Phase 1 complete. Subject believes we're responding according to standard patterns. Proceeding to Phase 2. Phase 2 would be the real test, maintaining the deception while accelerating technological development beyond anything the galaxy had achieved before. They had perhaps 2 weeks before the main Andromeda fleet arrived, and optimization began in earnest. The galaxy's survival now depended on the greatest collaborative effort in recorded history, hidden behind a facade of typical civilizational disunity and confusion. The joint research facility on Kepler Station had been transformed beyond recognition in just 3 weeks. What had once been a modest scientific outpost now housed the most concentrated technological development effort in galactic history, with scientists from 11 different species working around the clock on projects that would have been impossible for any single civilization to achieve. Dr. Eliza Okafor stood in the central laboratory, surrounded by displays showing breakthrough developments occurring faster than theoretical models had predicted possible. Beside her, Dr. Zax Thule of the Vesperian Dominion and Engineer Korthek of the Silicon Confederacy reviewed the latest results from the Quantum Consciousness Integration Project. The neural interface is exceeding all performance parameters, Dr. Zax Thule reported, their transparent form revealing excited internal processes. Combining human adaptive architecture with our quantum processing capabilities has produced cognitive enhancement factors of 300%. More importantly, added Engineer Korthek, their crystalline form vibrating with satisfaction, the integration process appears to be reversible. Subjects retain the ability to function with or without enhancement. Dr. Okafor nodded with grim satisfaction. That's crucial for what we're planning. The Andromeda expect optimization to be permanent and unidirectional. Reversible enhancement gives us capabilities they can't predict or counter. Across the laboratory, teams from 6 other species were achieving similar breakthroughs. The Graxian-Taurian Gravitational Manipulation Project had produced localized space-time distortion fields that could make vessels effectively invisible to conventional detection. The Arcturian Human Biological Adaptation Program had developed organisms capable of surviving in environments that would be lethal to their base species. Most significantly, the Multi-Species Quantum Entanglement Communications Project had evolved into something unprecedented, a network that could synchronize the thought processes of beings from different species, allowing real-time coordination of activities across vast distances. Status report from Admiral Kane, announced Dr. Okafor's assistant, transmitting data through the quantum network. The main Andromeda fleet has been detected at the galactic edge. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. The laboratory fell silent as scientists processed the implications. 3 days to complete developments that would normally require decades, assuming they were possible at all. Phase 3 implementation begins now, Dr. Okafor announced. All projects transition to final integration protocols. We're about to discover whether 3 months of impossible cooperation can produce something the universe has never seen before. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, the carefully orchestrated deception continued. Facilitator Aeon was meeting with representatives from the accommodation species, finalizing arrangements for their roles in the coming optimization process. The Silicon Confederacy will serve as primary technological assessors, Aeon explained to Ambassador Gorks. Your analysis of other species' capabilities will help determine optimal modification protocols. The Confederacy is honored by your confidence, Gorks replied, his crystalline form reflecting patterns that his quantum communicator translated as barely contained excitement. In reality, he was transmitting detailed intelligence about Andromedae assessment procedures to the Resistance Network. The Taurian Concordat will manage logistical coordination, Aeon continued, addressing Ambassador Vox. Your gravitational manipulation capabilities make you ideal for moving populations during the optimization process. Vox bowed formally. The Concordat accepts this responsibility with appropriate solemnity. His own quantum transmissions were providing the Resistance with crucial information about Andromedae population control methods. What Aeon couldn't detect was that every accommodation species was using their privileged access to gather intelligence while simultaneously preparing for the most audacious betrayal in galactic history. Back on Kepler Station, the final integration phase was producing results that astounded even the scientists involved. The Quantum Consciousness Network had achieved something unprecedented. Temporary merger of different species' cognitive processes, allowing Graxian mathematical genius to combine directly with human adaptability and Vesperian quantum intuition. We're not just creating new technologies, Dr. Okafor reported to the Resistance Command Center. We're creating new forms of consciousness, capable of developments that individual species could never achieve. Admiral Kane's voice came through the quantum network from the hidden command facility. How long before the integrated systems are operational? The consciousness network is functional now, Dr. Okafor replied. The enhanced vessels are completing final modifications. The biological adaptation protocols are ready for deployment. We're as prepared as we can be in the time available. Then it's time for the final phase, Kane announced. All units, implement protocol revelation. It's time to show the Andromedae what they're really facing. Throughout the galaxy, the deception that had been maintained for months began to transform into something else entirely. Ships that had appeared to be standard galactic vessels suddenly revealed capabilities that exceeded anything in the Andromeda database. Species that had seemed disunited began coordinating with precision that suggested a collective consciousness. Technologies that had appeared primitive suddenly demonstrated principles that challenged the Andromeda's understanding of physics itself. Fleet Commander Nexus stood on the bridge of the Andromeda flagship Transcendence, watching displays that showed impossible readings from throughout the galaxy. Ships that had registered as primitive were now demonstrating technology that exceeded collective capabilities. Species that had appeared disorganized were coordinating with precision that suggested shared consciousness. Analysis of quantum signatures confirms our most concerning assessment, reported Science Coordinator Phi, their elongated form tense with unprecedented worry. These beings have achieved technological integration at rates that violate all known development patterns. Explain, Nexus commanded, their authority carrying the weight of 50 millennia of successful optimization campaigns. The galactic civilization has somehow combined the unique capabilities of multiple species into hybrid technologies that exceed the sum of their parts, Phi continued. Moreover, the integration appears to have occurred within months rather than the millennia such developments should require. Facilitator Aeon materialized on the bridge through quantum transportation, their usual composure replaced by visible agitation. Fleet Commander, we have a serious problem. Initial contact protocols have failed completely. Status report, Nexus ordered. The species we identified for administrative cooperation have revealed that they were gathering intelligence while pretending to embrace optimization, Aeon reported. The Silicon Confederacy transmitted detailed analysis of our assessment methods to other species. The Taurian Concordat provided information about our logistical requirements to what appears to be a coordinated resistance network. Nexus processed this information with growing alarm. In 50,000 years of optimization campaigns, no civilization had achieved coordinated deception on such a scale. Furthermore, Aeon continued, the human species that appeared to be confused newcomers has revealed itself as the coordination center for galaxy-wide technological development. Their ambassador was apparently analyzing our methods while pretending to be overwhelmed by first contact. Show me, Nexus commanded. The main display activated, revealing Ambassador James Sullivan standing on the bridge of a vessel that bore no resemblance to the primitive ships they had observed during initial contact. The hull seemed to shift and flow like living metal. Quantum fields surrounded the ship in patterns that suggested technology beyond current collective understanding, and energy readings indicated power sources that operated on principles the Andromeda couldn't immediately identify. "Greetings, Fleet Commander Nexus," Sullivan said, his voice carrying across space through communication methods that bypassed Andromeda monitoring systems entirely. "I believe we need to discuss a significant change in your optimization timeline." Nexus felt something they hadn't experienced in millennia: uncertainty about the outcome of an optimization campaign. "Ambassador Sullivan," Nexus replied, maintaining diplomatic protocol despite the circumstances. "The collective acknowledges that your civilization has exceeded our initial assessments. However, this does not alter the fundamental benefits of guided evolution." Sullivan's expression remained politely diplomatic, but something in his eyes suggested depths of capability that the Andromedae were only beginning to understand. "With respect, Fleet Commander, I think you may be operating on outdated assumptions about what guided evolution means when applied to a civilization that has evolved specifically to counter your methods." As if to demonstrate his point, the space around Sullivan's vessel suddenly filled with ships that materialized from what appeared to be folded spacetime. Not dozens, but hundreds of vessels representing every major species in the galaxy, each incorporating technologies that combined multiple civilizational approaches in ways the Andromedae had never encountered. "You see," Sullivan continued conversationally, "humanity has this particular talent for learning from everything we encounter, including, over the past few months, everything we've learned about Andromedae optimization methods." "Impossible," Aeon interjected. "Our techniques are protected by quantum encryption and consciousness barriers that prevent analysis by developing civilizations." "Usually, yes," Sullivan agreed pleasantly. "But you've never encountered a civilization that included a survivor of your previous optimization campaigns among its intelligence assets." The statement hit the Andromeda like a physical blow. Nexus felt their quantum consciousness recoil from implications that challenged their fundamental understanding of reality. "Survivors are impossible," Nexus stated flatly. "Optimization protocols ensure complete integration or elimination. No consciousness can exist outside collective frameworks once optimization begins." "Meet Grave Curzon," Sullivan said, as a familiar shadowed figure materialized beside him. But now, the hood was lowered, revealing features that were startlingly similar to the Andromedae themselves, but somehow different, older, changed by experiences that had transformed them into something beyond collective comprehension. "Hello, Nexus," Curzon said, their voice no longer artificially modulated. "It's been 50,000 years. I've learned much about survival in that time." Nexus felt their consciousness fragment momentarily as they processed the impossible reality. Curzon was Andromeda, or had been, before whatever transformation had allowed them to exist outside collective control. "The Keth-Mori Protocol survivor," Nexus whispered, accessing archives that had been sealed for millennia. "You were eliminated. Your entire species was deleted from the galactic data stream." "My species was eliminated," Curzon confirmed. "But I learned something the collective never anticipated. That consciousness can adapt beyond your ability to contain it. I've spent 50,000 years becoming something you can't optimize because you can't understand what I've become. And I've spent 3 months teaching that adaptation process to an entire galaxy," Sullivan added. 11 major species, working together, have achieved what Curzon achieved alone: evolution beyond Andromeda optimization parameters. To demonstrate, the galactic fleet began displaying capabilities that challenged the Andromeda's understanding of physics itself. Ships phased through different dimensional layers, consciousness networks linked beings across vast distances, and technology demonstrated principles that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. "This changes nothing," Nexus declared, though their certainty was wavering. "The collective will adapt. Optimization will proceed according to modified protocols." "Actually," Sullivan said, his diplomatic smile becoming something more predatory, "that's where you're mistaken. You see, we've spent 3 months not just developing new technologies, but developing new forms of existence that can't be optimized because they exist outside the frameworks your optimization depends on." As if summoned by his words, the space around the Andromeda fleet began to fill with phenomena that violated their understanding of reality. Ships existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. beings demonstrated consciousness that operated across quantum entanglement networks spanning the galaxy. Technology functioned according to principles that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. What you're seeing, Sullivan explained, is a galaxy that has evolved specifically to counter everything you represent. Not by becoming stronger than you, but by becoming something you can't categorize, predict, or optimize. Fleet Commander Nexus found themselves facing something unprecedented in collective history. A civilization that had used the Andromeda's own methods against them, achieving transformation that made optimization impossible because the targets no longer existed within parameters that optimization could affect. The question now, Sullivan continued, is whether the Andromeda Collective is capable of learning something new after 50,000 years of enforcing stagnation on others. For the first time in their existence, the Andromeda faced the possibility that they might be the ones requiring guidance. The standoff between the Andromeda fleet and the transformed galactic civilization lasted for 6 standard days. During that time, Fleet Commander Nexus experienced something unprecedented in collective history. Genuine uncertainty about how to proceed. Analysis remains inconclusive, reported Science Coordinator Phi during their daily assessment meeting. The galactic civilization continues to demonstrate capabilities that operate outside known optimization parameters. Specify, Nexus commanded, though they suspected they already knew the answer. They appear to have achieved what our models indicated was impossible. Voluntary consciousness modification that enhances capability without eliminating essential identity markers. Their species remain recognizably themselves while operating at effectiveness levels that exceed optimized benchmarks. Facilitator Aeon materialized on the bridge, their form showing signs of strain that Nexus had never observed in a collective member. Fleet Commander, I've completed extensive analysis of the human ambassador's proposals. Their offer of cultural exchange may represent our only viable option. Explain. The galactic civilization is not refusing optimization. They're offering an alternative form of guided evolution, one that involves bidirectional learning rather than unidirectional modification. Nexus processed this concept with difficulty. In 50,000 years of expansion, the collective had never encountered a civilization that proposed teaching the Andromeda anything. Furthermore, Aeon continued, their technological demonstrations suggest they may have achieved capabilities we lack. The consciousness networking, dimensional phase shifting, and adaptive evolution protocols represent developments beyond current collective understanding. You're suggesting we could benefit from studying their methods? I'm suggesting, Fleet Commander, that this may be the first civilization we've encountered that has something to offer the collective beyond raw materials for optimization. The implications were staggering. The Andromeda had spent 50 millennia as the teachers, the guides, the species that elevated others. The possibility that they might have something to learn challenged their fundamental understanding of their place in the cosmos. Request communication with Ambassador Sullivan, Nexus decided. If this civilization believes they can teach the collective, we will evaluate their curriculum. An hour later, Sullivan appeared on the main display, but he was no longer alone. Beside him stood representatives from multiple species, their forms somehow enhanced beyond their normal capabilities. More disturbing to Andromeda perceptions, Grave Curzon stood among them, no longer hiding their transformed nature. Fleet Commander Nexus, Sullivan greeted formally. The galactic community appreciates your willingness to consider alternative approaches to guided evolution. Ambassador Sullivan, Nexus replied. The collective requires clarification about your proposals. You speak of bidirectional learning as if developing civilizations could provide knowledge to beings who have achieved transcendence. With respect, Fleet Commander, transcendence is a relative concept, Sullivan responded. The Andromeda Collective has achieved remarkable technological capabilities and social organization. But transcendence also implies moving beyond previous limitations, including the limitation of believing you have nothing left to learn. Curzon stepped forward, their transformed features carrying the weight of 50,000 years of hidden existence. Nexus, the Collective's greatest achievement, has also become its greatest limitation. You perfected a single approach to evolution and applied it universally. But evolution itself is about adaptation to changing circumstances, not the enforcement of unchanging patterns. The Kethmori survivor makes an interesting point, Nexus acknowledged. However, collective methods have achieved success across hundreds of galaxies. Our optimization protocols have eliminated war, poverty, disease, and inefficiency on a cosmic scale. Yes, Sullivan agreed. And in doing so, you've also eliminated diversity, creativity, unpredictability, and the capacity for genuinely new developments. You've created a universe of perfected stagnation. To demonstrate his point, Sullivan activated displays showing the technological breakthroughs the galaxy had achieved in just 3 months of unprecedented cooperation. What you're seeing, he explained, represents developments that no single species could have achieved, but which became possible when different approaches to consciousness, technology, and existence were allowed to interact and combine in unexpected ways. The quantum consciousness networks alone, added Dr. Okafor, materializing beside Sullivan, have produced insights into the nature of reality that challenge fundamental assumptions about the relationship between matter, energy, and awareness. Science Coordinator Phi leaned forward with obvious interest despite themselves. You claim to have made discoveries about consciousness that exceed collective understanding? We've made discoveries about the possibilities that emerge when consciousness is allowed to evolve in directions you've never permitted, Dr. Okafor replied. Because evolution requires exactly what your optimization eliminates: uncertainty, diversity, and the freedom to become something unprecedented. For several minutes, neither side spoke as the implications settled across both fleets. The Andromeda found themselves contemplating the possibility that their greatest success, creating perfect order, might have blinded them to possibilities they couldn't imagine. What specifically do you propose? Nexus finally asked. Sullivan smiled with genuine diplomatic warmth. Exchange, Fleet Commander. Not the replacement of your civilization with ours, or ours with yours, but genuine interaction between two different approaches to existence. Learn from each other. See what emerges when Andromeda perfection encounters galactic adaptability. And if such interaction proves problematic, then we'll adapt, Sullivan replied simply. That's what evolution does. It finds ways to make apparently incompatible elements work together productively. It's what this galaxy did when faced with the choice between optimization and extinction. Curzon added quietly, Nexus, in 50,000 years of hiding, I learned something the collective never taught. That survival sometimes requires becoming something you never intended to be. Your civilization now faces the same choice mine did. Fleet Commander Nexus felt the weight of a decision that could reshape not just their current mission, but the entire trajectory of Andromeda civilization. After 50 millennia of guiding others, they faced the possibility of being guided themselves. The collective will consider your proposal, Nexus finally announced. However, such a fundamental change in approach would require consensus from the greater assembly. Of course, Sullivan replied. In the meantime, we'd be happy to demonstrate some of our developments, perhaps starting with the reversible consciousness enhancement protocols that might allow Andromeda individuals to experience galactic adaptability without permanent modification. It was a masterful offer, the chance to experience the new approaches without commitment, exactly the kind of careful evaluation the Andromeda would find difficult to refuse. Acceptable, Nexus agreed. The collective will evaluate your educational offerings. As the transmission ended, Sullivan turned to his companions with cautious optimism. Phase 4 complete. They're willing to consider that they might have something to learn. And if they decide they don't like what they learn? Asked Admiral Kane. Sullivan straightened his red tie, a gesture that had become symbolic throughout the galaxy of human diplomacy backed by unexpected depths. Then we'll have learned something valuable about them, he replied, and we'll adapt accordingly. After all, that's what we do best. 1 year later, Ambassador James Sullivan stood in the observation deck of the joint Andromeda Galactic Research Station Synthesis, watching ships from dozens of species working alongside Andromeda vessels in configurations that would have been unimaginable 2 years earlier. The station itself represented something unprecedented, a fusion of Andromeda perfection and galactic adaptability that had produced technologies and insights beyond what either approach could achieve alone. Through the massive viewport, he could see the fruits of the strangest partnership in cosmic history. Andromeda consciousness technology, combined with galactic quantum networks, had produced communication systems that operated across dimensional barriers. Galactic adaptive evolution merged with Andromeda optimization techniques had created biological modifications that enhanced capability while preserving essential identity. Most remarkably, the exchange had produced entirely new forms of existence that neither side had previously imagined possible. Status report from the Joint Consciousness Project, announced Dr. Okafor, approaching with data displays that showed remarkable progress. The Andromeda volunteers who underwent reversible adaptation protocols are reporting perspectives they describe as impossibly expansive. They're experiencing creativity and unpredictability for the first time in their existence. And our volunteers in the Andromeda Enhancement Program? Equally fascinating results. The structural efficiency and long-term perspective they're gaining is allowing for planning and development approaches that span millennia rather than decades. Sullivan nodded with satisfaction. The exchange program had been the key to making the partnership work, allowing individuals from both civilizations to experience the other's approach without permanent commitment. The results had exceeded even optimistic projections. Report from Grave Curzon, Dr. Okafor continued. The Consciousness Archaeology Project has successfully reconstructed data about 17 civilizations that were previously optimized by the Andromeda. Preliminary analysis suggests that at least 12 could be restored to independent existence using combined galactic Andromedae techniques. It was perhaps the most important development of the partnership, the possibility of undoing some of the collective's historical optimization campaigns, restoring civilizations that had been transformed beyond recognition. And the response from the Greater Assembly? Mixed, but encouraging. 43% of Andromeda regional commands have voted to participate in exchange programs. 27% remain committed to traditional optimization approaches. The remaining 30% are requesting more data before deciding. Sullivan smiled at the irony. After 50,000 years of enforcing uniformity, the Andromeda were discovering the benefits of diversity within their own civilization. His quantum communicator chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth. Director Vasquez appeared, her expression showing the quiet satisfaction of someone watching a successful long-term strategy reach fruition. Ambassador, the latest reports indicate that the partnership is producing results beyond our most optimistic projections. 17 major technological breakthroughs in the past month alone, 3 new forms of consciousness that combine biological and artificial intelligence, and successful restoration of 2 previously optimized civilizations. Any integration problems? Remarkably few. It seems that when cooperation is voluntary and bidirectional, even radical differences can be bridged. Sullivan chuckled. Humanity has always worked best when everyone involved has something to gain from success and something to lose from failure. Indeed. There is one interesting development. The collective has formally requested that humanity serve as mediators for their planned contact with 3 other galaxy clusters. They want our adaptive integration expertise to help design approach strategies that emphasize cooperation rather than optimization. The implications were staggering. Humanity had gone from being a confused newcomer to the galactic community to serving as mediators for contact between cosmic civilizations. Our response? The Strategy Board has approved preliminary discussions, with the caveat that any such mediation would require full participation from our galactic partners. We've learned the value of collective approaches. Agreed, though I suspect the other galaxy clusters may present challenges we haven't anticipated. When has that ever stopped humanity from trying? Vasquez asked with a rare smile. As the transmission ended, Sullivan reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this point. Earth had entered the galactic community as apparent weaklings, a species without natural defenses, advanced technology, or significant resources. Yet that apparent vulnerability had concealed humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn from everything, adapt to anything, and find ways to make incompatible elements work together. Ambassador Sullivan to the bridge, came Captain Chen's voice. Priority transmission from outer galaxy monitoring stations. Sullivan made his way to the command center, where displays showed long-range sensor data from the galactic edge. Captain Chen stood beside Fleet Commander Nexus, a sight that still seemed surreal despite a year of cooperation. Report, Sullivan requested. Long-range sensors have detected quantum disturbances from 3 neighboring galaxy clusters, Captain Chen explained. Energy signatures suggest transgalactic civilizations, but with different technological approaches than the Andromeda. More concerning, added Nexus, their luminous form pulsing with worried patterns. The signatures don't match collective technology. We appear to be detecting evidence of other transcendent civilizations that developed along entirely different paths. Sullivan felt familiar excitement and apprehension. Just when they had successfully integrated one cosmic civilization, the universe was presenting new challenges. Analysis suggests at least 2 distinct approaches, Captain Chen continued. One appears based on biological transcendence rather than technological optimization. The other shows patterns consistent with machine consciousness rather than organic enhancement. So we may be facing civilizations that achieve transcendence through paths the Andromeda never explored, Sullivan mused. Precisely, Nexus confirmed. And if they follow expansionist patterns, they may view both our galaxy and the collective as targets for their own forms of guided evolution. Sullivan activated the quantum communication network, reaching every major civilization within seconds. All stations, this is Ambassador Sullivan. We have intelligence indicating potential contact with additional transgalactic civilizations. Recommend immediate consultation with all partners regarding response protocols. Within minutes, responses flooded in from across the galaxy. The Graxians offered mathematical modeling capabilities for analyzing the approaching signatures. The Vesperians suggested consciousness network modifications to enable communication with machine intelligences. The Arcturians proposed biological adaptation protocols for interfacing with transcendent organic entities. Most importantly, Andromeda regional commands throughout the galaxy began coordinating with the Galactic Resistance Network that had been their former target. You know, Sullivan said to Nexus as they watched the coordination displays, a year ago, our civilizations were preparing for war. Now we're automatically coordinating responses to external threats. The irony is not lost on us, Ambassador, Nexus replied, though I suspect our new partners may present challenges that will test this cooperation in ways our conflict never did. Probably, Sullivan agreed. But that's what evolution is about, facing new challenges and finding ways to adapt that you never thought possible. He activated a station-wide communication to address the mixed crews of humans, Andromedae, and dozens of galactic species working together throughout the facility. All hands, we've just received intelligence about potential new contacts from other galaxy clusters. Based on our experience over the past year, we know that such contacts can lead to either cooperation or conflict, depending on how they're handled. Sullivan paused, looking around at beings who represented the most successful integration of diverse civilizations in known history. What we've learned is that apparent incompatibilities can become complementary strengths when approached with genuine openness to change. We've seen Andromeda perfection enhance galactic adaptability, and galactic creativity revitalize Andromeda development. We've proven that evolution isn't about conquest or optimization. It's about finding new ways for different approaches to existence to support and enhance each other.
Hi.
Whatever we encounter in the coming months, we'll face it as partners, not as separate civilizations competing for survival, but as components of something larger than any of us could be alone. As the station's diverse crew returned to their duties, Sullivan stood beside Nexus, watching ships prepare for whatever challenges might emerge from the cosmic depths. Do you think we're ready for this? Nexus asked. Sullivan straightened his red tie, a gesture that had somehow become recognized throughout multiple galaxy clusters as a symbol of diplomatic determination, backed by unexpected capability. Probably not, he replied honestly, but that's never stopped us before. After all, the best thing about being an adaptable species is that you don't have to be ready for everything. You just have to be capable of becoming ready for anything. Looking out at the impossible sight of former enemies working as partners to face unknown challenges, Sullivan felt the familiar mixture of apprehension and excitement that came with pushing into uncharted territory. The universe, it seemed, was much larger and more complex than anyone had imagined. But then again, so was the capacity for different forms of consciousness to evolve together into something unprecedented. The next phase of cosmic evolution was about to begin, and humanity, along with their new partners, would adapt to meet it. After all, evolution never stopped. It just found new and unexpected directions to explore. End of Part 2. The Expansion. The story continues in Part 3. The Transcendence, where the partnership between galactic civilization and the Andromeda Collective faces challenges from civilizations that achieve transcendence through paths no one had previously imagined.